The morning air felt cool against Diane Russell's face as she walked along the eastern fence of New Eden Colony. 3 farmers had reported damaged equipment overnight. As head of colony security, it was her job to figure out what was happening. Probably just some local wildlife, she muttered to herself. New Eden had been settled for only 5 years. The planet's animals were still getting used to humans. Her radio buzzed. "Russell here," she answered. "Ma'am, you need to come see this," said Officer Ben Ellis. "I'm at the Miller farm." 20 minutes later, Diane's rover pulled up to Paul Miller's property. The farmer stood next to Ben, pointing at something on the ground. "Morning, Paul, what have we got?" Paul Miller was a quiet man who rarely complained. Today, his face looked pale. "Lost 3 cows last night. Whatever did it wasn't natural." Diane knelt to examine the tracks pressed into the soft dirt. They resembled wolf prints but were much larger, almost the size of dinner plates. The stride length suggested an animal bigger than anything in their wildlife database. "You have security cameras, right?" she asked. Paul nodded. "That's what's got me worried." Inside the farmhouse, Paul's wife Nancy pulled up the footage on their home computer. The timestamp showed 2:17 a.m. The video quality wasn't great, but it clearly showed 3 large shapes moving through the cattle pen. When Paul turned up the brightness, Diane felt her stomach tighten. The creatures looked somewhat like wolves, but with scaled skin that reflected the moonlight. Most disturbing were their heads. Each had multiple eyes that glowed slightly in the dark. "Those aren't from around here," Nancy whispered. "I'm calling Greg Howard," Diane said, referring to the colony's lead biologist. By afternoon, Greg had reviewed the footage multiple times. He sat across from Diane in the small security office, looking troubled. "These aren't native species," he confirmed. "Nothing in our surveys shows anything remotely like them. The muscle structure, the eye arrangement, they're not natural." "What do you mean, not natural?" Diane asked. "I mean, they look engineered, created, and not by natural evolution." Diane felt a chill run through her. "You're saying someone made these things?" Greg nodded slowly. "That would be my professional opinion, yes." That night, the creatures attacked the night shift at the Eastern Solar Array. 3 maintenance workers died before help arrived. By the time security forces reached the scene, the beasts had disappeared. The Colony Council called an emergency meeting. Diane played the security footage from the solar array. It showed the same wolf-like creatures, but this time there was something else. Small flying objects hovering above them, watching. "They're being monitored," said Diane. "Whatever these things are, someone's controlling them." The colony's communications officer, Ray Peters, raised his hand. "We're not the only ones. I've been in contact with other colonies. Similar attacks have been reported across 3 star systems." A stunned silence fell over the room. "We need to contact Earth Command," said Colony Administrator Karen Wright. "This is beyond our capabilities." As the meeting ended, Diane's personal communicator beeped with a message from Earth Command's Science Division. Dr. Linda Gomez had analyzed the attack patterns across all affected colonies. "Every targeted colony is on a resource-rich planet," Linda explained over the secure channel. "Titanium, rare earth metals, water, they're all major export colonies." "So this is about resources?" Diane asked. "That would be my guess. Someone wants what we have." Admiral Joe Simmons of Earth Fleet appeared on the screen. "We're mobilizing the fleet, but it will take time to reach the outer colonies. Until then, you need to strengthen your defenses." Over the next week, Diane organized the colony's security response. They set up additional barriers, armed civilian volunteers, and established a colony-wide curfew. Every day brought news of another attack somewhere in human space. After a long shift, Diane finally returned home to her small prefab house at the edge of the residential zone. Her aging German Shepherd, Max, greeted her at the door. At 12 years old, Max had been with her since her Earth Fleet days. He'd been one of the first pets approved for off-world colonization. "Hey, buddy," she said, scratching behind his ears. "Sorry I'm late." That night, Diane woke to Max growling by the bedroom window. The clock showed 3:42 a.m. Max never barked without reason. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, grabbing her sidearm. From the nightstand. Max continued growling, his eyes fixed on something outside. Diane peered through the blinds but saw nothing in the darkness. She activated the house's external sensors, but they showed no movement, just as she was about to. "Return to bed?" Her communicator buzzed with an alert. An attack was happening at the Western storage facility, exactly opposite from where her house was located. The next night, Max began growling again, this time facing the northern perimeter. Diane took note of the time and direction. An hour later, the northern greenhouse was attacked. Over the next 3 nights, the pattern continued. Max would grow agitated, facing a specific direction, and an attack would follow. On the 4th night, Diane was ready. When Max began growling toward the eastern fence, she immediately alerted the security team. "I know this sounds crazy," she told Officer Ellis over the radio, "but I think we're about to have an attack near the eastern water reclamation plant. My dog is sensing something." Ellis positioned his team accordingly. 20 minutes later, they intercepted 3 of the beasts before they could breach the facility. The next morning, Diane brought Max to Greg Howard's lab. "Your dog knew they were coming?" Greg asked skeptically. 4 nights in a row. He always faces the right direction, always before the attacks happen. Greg ran several tests on Max, hearing, smell, brainwave patterns. When the results came in, he looked surprised. "His sensory capabilities are normal for his breed and age," Greg said, "but his brain activity shows something interesting. When we played back recordings of the attack sites, his brain produces patterns that suggest he's picking up something we can't detect." "Like what?" Diane asked. "I don't know yet, but I've got a theory." Greg pulled up reports from other colonies on his tablet. "I've been talking to my colleagues on other worlds. They're seeing the same thing. Earth animals, dogs, cats, even birds and hamsters. They all get agitated before attacks." Diane looked at Max, who sat calmly by her side, unaware of his sudden importance. "So our pets can sense these things coming?" "Maybe," said Greg. "Or maybe they're sensing whatever control signals are being used to direct them." Diane's communicator beeped with a priority message. Earth Command was calling. All colonies. A transmission had been received from space. First contact with the enemy responsible for the attacks. As the message played across the colony's communication system, Diane watched the faces of her fellow colonists grow pale. The aliens called themselves the Kavari. They demanded all resource-rich worlds be surrendered. If humans refused, the attacks would increase. Admiral Simmons appeared on screen after the alien message ended. "Earth and all her colonies reject these demands," he said firmly. "We do not surrender to threats." That evening, as Diane walked Max around the colony perimeter, she noticed him stopping frequently, raising his nose to the air. "What is it, boy?" she asked, suddenly alert. Max turned his head slowly, tracking something invisible. Diane looked in the same direction but saw nothing. Then she realized what Max was doing. He wasn't just detecting the beasts when they approached. He was somehow tracking their movements even when they weren't attacking. She quickly called Greg. "I think there's more to this than we thought," she said. "Max isn't just detecting attacks. He's sensing their presence even when they're not attacking. I think our pets might be more useful in this war than anyone realized." As darkness fell over New Eden Colony, Diane looked up at the stars and wondered what other surprises this conflict would bring. The aliens had sent their war beasts thinking humans would be easy prey. They didn't understand that humans had lived alongside predators for their entire history, not as enemies but as companions. And those companions were proving to be humanity's first line of defense. 3 months had passed since the first attacks. 53 human colonies now faced the Kavari war beasts. Earth fleet ships patrolled space, but the enemy remained hidden, sending only their engineered creatures to fight. Captain Maria Delgado stood in the secure laboratory aboard the EF's Horizon. Before her, inside a reinforced glass container, lay one of the alien war beasts. It had been killed during an attack on Proxima Colony. "What have you learned?" she asked the science team. Dr. Alan Foster pointed to a display showing the creature's internal structure. "These aren't just animals, they're weapons. Look here." He zoomed in on the beast's brain. These are neural implants. Someone is controlling these things remotely. Maria studied the image. Can we track the signal back to the source? We're trying, said Alan, but they change frequencies constantly. The ship's communications officer interrupted. Captain, we're receiving a fleet-wide transmission. The Kavari are broadcasting again. On the main screen, a creature appeared. It had 6 limbs, a hard exoskeleton, and compound eyes that reflected light in a rainbow pattern. Its mandibles clicked as it spoke through some kind of translation device. Humans, it said, your resistance is pointless. Surrender your resource worlds or face extinction. You have 7 Earth days to withdraw your populations. Admiral Simmons appeared on a split screen, responding from Earth Command. We do not recognize your claim to our worlds. We will not surrender. The Kavari representative made a sound that might have been laughter. Your species is weak. You waste resources on non-utilitarian life forms. You keep useless pets. Such weakness dooms you. The transmission ended. Maria looked at her science team. They're insulting our pets now? What does that have to do with anything? Back on New Eden, Diane Russell had been promoted to defense coordinator. Her job was to organize the colony's protection against the increasingly frequent beast attacks. Max, her German shepherd, had become an essential part of this defense. Greg Howard had expanded his research to include all domestic animals in the colony. In his laboratory, screens displayed data from monitoring collars on dogs, cats, birds, and even hamsters. It's remarkable, he told Diane. Every Earth animal shows the same response. They detect the war beast's presence up to 30 minutes before our sensors can find them. Diane watched Max, who sat alertly beside her chair. How are they doing? We think they're detecting the control signals, Greg explained. The Kavari use a form of communication that includes pheromones and electromagnetic pulses. Our technology isn't designed to detect these, but our animals evolved to notice subtle environmental changes. Can we use this somehow? Diane asked. Earth Command is already working on it. Dr. Kevin Park is heading a project called Operation Companion. 2 days later, Diane received a video call from Earth Command. Dr. Kevin Park appeared on screen with a woman she didn't recognize. Defense Coordinator Russell, I'm Dr. Park. This is Dr. Alice Bennett, our top veterinary scientist. We understand your dog was one of the first to detect the Kavari signals? Diane nodded. Yes, Max has been invaluable to our defense efforts. We're developing special equipment, said Dr. Bennett. Neural interface collars that will let handlers receive warning signals directly from their animals. Would you be willing to test the prototype? Absolutely, Diane replied without hesitation. The equipment arrived a week later on a military transport. The collar looked like normal pet equipment but contained sophisticated technology. Once placed on Max, it linked to a small device Diane wore on her wrist. That night, while Diane was reviewing security plans, her wrist device suddenly vibrated. At the same moment, Max stood up and growled, facing east. Diane immediately alerted security teams. Possible attack coming from the eastern forest, she reported. Max just gave warning. 20 minutes later, sensors detected 5 war beasts approaching from exactly that direction. Security teams were already in position. For the first time, they intercepted all the beasts before any damage occurred. News of the successful defense spread quickly. Within days, other colonies were implementing similar systems with their own domestic animals. Dogs were most commonly used, but cats proved equally effective. Some colonies even reported success with birds, which became agitated when war beasts approached. The Kavari responded by increasing the number of beasts they sent. New Eden faced its largest attack yet, when 30 war beasts approached from 3 directions simultaneously. Colony communications went down during the attack, leaving defense teams isolated. Diane and Max were near the western perimeter when it happened. Without radio contact, she had to rely entirely on Max. The collar sent signals to her wrist device, not just warnings now, but directional information. You can tell where they're going, can't you, boy? She whispered. Max tilted his head, ears forward, focusing intently. Diane felt the wrist device pulse in a pattern. Somehow she understood what it meant. The beasts were splitting into groups, surrounding the colony's power station. Diane led her team through back routes, allowing them to intercept the war beasts before they reached their target. When communications were restored, Diane learned that similar scenes had played out across the colony. Handlers and their animals had somehow worked together, anticipating the beasts' movements without traditional communication. Dr. Bennett arrived on New Eden the following week to study this development. She brought with her new research from Earth. What we're seeing isn't just detection, she explained to Diane and Greg. The neural interfaces are creating a deeper connection. The animals aren't just sensing the Kavari signals. They're beginning to understand them. Is that possible? Greg asked. It shouldn't be, Dr. Bennett admitted. But we're seeing the same pattern across all colonies. The longer our animals are exposed to these signals, the better they get at interpreting them. She showed them data on a tablet. We've begun a new research phase. We're looking at ways to enhance our animals' natural abilities through genetic modifications. Isn't that what the Kavari are doing with their war beasts? Diane asked, concerned. The difference is consent, Dr. Bennett said firmly. We're only working with volunteer handlers and their animals and only making modifications that enhance existing abilities, not creating weapons. The priority is the animal's welfare. Diane looked at Max, who had been her companion for years. Would it help him? Would it be safe? We believe so, said Dr. Bennett. And we've made another discovery. Some pets, particularly those with strong bonds to their humans, can not only detect the Kavari signals but potentially disrupt them. This news changed everything. If Earth's animals could interfere with the control signals, the war beasts might become confused or even stop attacking. A week later, the research team had set up a testing facility on the edge of the colony. Max was the first subject. Diane watched nervously as Dr. Bennett explained the procedure. The modification is minimal, she assured Diane. We're enhancing abilities he already has, nothing more. After the procedure, Max seemed unchanged except for a slight glow to his eyes in the dark. The real test came 3 days later when sensors detected a large group of war beasts approaching. Diane and Max took position at the colony perimeter. As the beasts came into view, Max began to growl, but different than before, deeper, more focused. The neural collar glowed slightly. The lead war beast suddenly stopped. It shook its head as if confused. The others behind it began to move erratically, some turning in circles, others backing away. It's working, Diane whispered. He's disrupting their commands. Across human space, the tide of the war was beginning to turn. Earth's animals, the useless pets the Kavari had mocked, were becoming humanity's most unexpected defense. And for the first time since the attacks began, the aliens seemed uncertain. Earth Command's headquarters buzzed with activity. Admiral Joe Simmons studied the large display showing all human colonies under attack. Red dots marked ongoing conflicts. Yellow dots showed colonies with new pet defense systems in place. The yellow dots were growing in number. Operation Companion is showing real promise, said Dr. Kevin Park, standing beside the Admiral. The modified pets are successfully disrupting Kavari control signals in 27 colonies now. How quickly can we expand the program? Asked Simmons. Dr. Bennett has simplified the procedure. We can modify up to 100 animals per day at each major colony. The Admiral nodded. Make it happen. I want every colony protected within a month. On New Eden, Diane Russell walked through the newly established Pet Defense Center. The large warehouse had been converted into a combination veterinary hospital and training facility. Dogs, cats, and other domestic animals moved through training exercises with their handlers. Dr. Bennett approached, carrying a tablet with test results. Max's disruption abilities are among the strongest we've seen, she said. The bond between you two amplifies the effect. Diane watched Max complete a training exercise where he successfully confused a simulated war beast signal. How does the bond matter? She asked. The neural interface works better when there's genuine emotional connection, Dr. Bennett explained. Pets that have been with their humans for years show the strongest results. It's like the emotional bond creates a feedback loop that strengthens the signal. Greg Howard joined them, excitement clear on his face. "We've made another breakthrough," he said. "Different animal species disrupt the Kavari signals in different ways." He led them to a research area where various animals were being monitored. Dogs block the command signals completely. Cats create a kind of static that confuses the targeting. Birds can mimic parts of the signal, sending false commands. "What about smaller pets?" Diane asked. "That's the really interesting part," Greg replied. "Hamsters, guinea pigs, even pet rats. They're too small for the neural interfaces, but they're extremely sensitive to the presence of war beasts. We're using them as early warning systems for outlying areas." The facility's alarm suddenly sounded. A voice came over the speakers. "Alert! Large force of war beasts approaching from the north. All defense teams to positions." Diane and Max rushed to the northern perimeter. Other handlers and their pets were already gathering. The colony's defenses had improved dramatically since the first attacks. Now, instead of just reacting, they could intercept the beasts before they reached the colony. Max's enhanced senses allowed Diane to know exactly where the beasts would emerge from the forest. She positioned her team accordingly. When the first war beasts appeared, the defense pets were ready. 20 dogs with neural interfaces stood at the front line. Behind them, handlers with specialized weapons waited. As the war beasts charged, the dogs began their disruption. The effect was immediate. The attacking creatures stumbled, some stopping completely, others moving in random directions. "Fire when ready," Diane ordered. The defense team took down the confused beasts with well-aimed shots. The battle was over quickly, with no human casualties. But as the team regrouped, Diane noticed something strange. The war beasts looked different. These had thicker armor and what appeared to be shielding around their neural implants. "They're adapting," she said, examining one of the fallen creatures. "The Kavari are modifying their beasts to resist our disruption." Back at the research center, Dr. Bennett analyzed the new war beast design. "You're right," she told Diane. "They've added shielding to protect against our pets' disruption signals, but it's only partially effective." "How do we counter this?" Diane asked. Dr. Bennett smiled. "We've been working on the next phase already. Instead of just enhancing your pet's natural abilities, we're adding new ones." She led Diane to a special section of the facility where several dogs were training. These animals had small devices attached to their collars. "These units amplify their disruption signals," Dr. Bennett explained, "and we've developed specialized equipment for different species." She showed Diane cats wearing lightweight vests with sensory equipment, birds with tiny transmitters on their legs, and even small rodents with monitoring devices in their habitats. "The Kavari made a critical mistake," Greg said, joining them. "They assumed our pets were just useless companions. They didn't understand these animals have been evolving alongside humans for thousands of years. That creates a special kind of intelligence that can't be engineered." A communication officer rushed in. "We're receiving a fleet-wide transmission. The Kavari are broadcasting again." On the main screen, the insect-like alien appeared. It looked agitated, its mandibles clicking rapidly. "Humans," it said, "your use of lesser creatures to fight is dishonorable. Our war beasts are superior weapons designed for perfect obedience. Your pets are chaotic and unpredictable." Admiral Simmons responded from Earth Command. "That unpredictability is exactly what makes them effective. Your beasts follow orders. Our companions make choices." The Kavari seemed confused by this concept. "Choice is inefficient, obedience is strength." "You'll learn differently," said Simmons before ending the transmission. The next day, Earth Command launched a new initiative. While Colonies had been using pets defensively, now they would form special units for active missions. Diane and Max were selected to lead one of the first K-9 tactical response teams. "Your mission," explained Captain Sam Rodriguez during the briefing, "is to locate and disable the closest Kavari control station. We believe it's hidden somewhere in the mountains north of the colony." Diane's team consisted of 6 handlers and their enhanced pets, 4 dogs including Max and 2 cats equipped with stealth technology. They moved out at dawn, following Max's enhanced senses toward the source of the control signals. After a day's journey through dense forest, they reached the mountain base. Max and the other dogs became increasingly alert, indicating they were getting closer to something important. "The signal is stronger here," Diane told her team. "The cats should scout ahead." The two handlers released their cats, Felix and Shadow, who wore camouflage vests with camera equipment. The cats moved silently through the underbrush, naturally stealthy even without their enhancements. The footage from their cameras revealed a hidden entrance in the mountainside, guarded by 4 war beasts larger than any they had seen before. "We can't fight those directly," said Officer Jack Boyd, one of the dog handlers. "They're too big. We don't need to fight them," Diane replied. "We just need to confuse them." They positioned the dogs at strategic points around the entrance. On Diane's signal, all 4 dogs activated their disruption abilities simultaneously. The effect was dramatic. The guard beasts began to twitch and shake, unable to maintain their positions. "Now," Diane ordered. The team moved swiftly past the confused beasts and into the mountain facility. Inside, they found not Kavari, but machines, a fully automated control center sending signals to the war beasts throughout the region. Max led Diane to the central computer, somehow understanding its importance. "Plant the disruptors," Diane ordered. The team placed small devices throughout the facility. These would not destroy the station, but would corrupt its signals, causing all war beasts in the area to lose their programming. As they finished, an alarm sounded. The facility had detected them. Emergency doors began to close. "Everyone out now," Diane shouted. They ran for the exit, pets leading the way. Max was the last animal out, waiting for Diane, who was setting the final disruptor. As the door began to close, he barked urgently. Diane dove through the narrowing gap, Max pulling her by her sleeve. They made it out just as the door sealed shut. Minutes later, the disruptors activated. Across the region, war beasts suddenly stopped attacking. Some wandered aimlessly, others simply lay down, their purpose gone. "Mission accomplished," Diane said, patting Max's head. As they returned to the colony, news came in from Earth Command. Similar missions were succeeding across human space. The tide of the war was turning, all because of the bond between humans and their pets, a bond the Kavari had dismissed as weakness, but was proving to be humanity's greatest strength. 6 months into the war, Earth launched the Enhanced Companion Defense Initiative. Over 10,000 specially modified pets now served alongside their human handlers across all colonies. The Kavari attacks had decreased by 60%. For the first time since the conflict began, humans were winning. Captain Frank Rogers stood at the command center of the assault ship EFS Defender. His mission, reclaim the mining colony on Vega Prime, which had fallen to the war beasts 3 months ago. What made this mission different was his team. 20 dog handlers, 15 cat specialists, and 10 handlers with various small mammals made up the core of his strike force. "All teams report ready, sir," said his executive officer, Lisa Chen. "Begin the operation," ordered Rogers. Dropships carried the teams to the surface. The mining colony had once been home to 5,000 people. Now it was occupied by hundreds of war beasts, using it as a forward base. The first wave consisted of handlers with enhanced cats. These felines, wearing advanced stealth gear, moved silently through the colony's outskirts. Their neural interfaces allowed their handlers to see everything they saw. 6 large war beasts at the main gate, reported cat handler Olivia Grant. They appear to be a new variant. Heavier armor, possibly enhanced senses. Rogers adjusted the plan accordingly. Release the disruptors. The second wave moved in. Teams with enhanced dogs took positions surrounding the colony. On signal, they activated their disruption abilities, now amplified by specialized collars. Inside the colony, the effect was immediate. Security cameras showed war beasts stumbling, some crashing into walls, others fighting each other in confusion. "Third wave, move in," Rogers ordered. This wave included handlers with rats, ferrets, and hamsters. While these smaller animals couldn't fight directly, they carried tiny devices that could interfere with Kavari technology. They slipped through small openings in buildings, planting disruptors on control equipment. Diane Russell and Max led, one of the dog teams entering through the colony's southern gate. The war beasts they encountered were disoriented but still dangerous. Max's disruption ability kept them confused while the human team neutralized them. "Command, this is Russell," she reported. "Southern sector secure, moving to the central control facility." As they approached the colony's center, Max suddenly stopped, growling in a way Diane had never heard before. "All teams, hold position," she ordered. "Something's wrong." A moment later, a high-pitched sound filled the air. The enhanced pets reacted. Immediately, many whimpering in pain. "It's some kind of sonic weapon," Rogers realized. "They've developed a counter to our pets." The war beasts, seemingly immune to the sound, began to recover from their confusion. They moved with purpose again, advancing toward the human teams. "Fall back to defensive positions," Rogers ordered. "Medical teams, check the animals." Diane knelt beside Max, who was shaking his head in discomfort but still alert. "Hang in there, boy," she said softly, checking his neural interface. The device was still functioning, but at reduced capacity. Dr. Bennett's voice came over the communication system. "All handlers, adjust your pet's interface frequency to channel 7. We prepared for this possibility." Diane made the adjustment to Max's collar. Immediately, he seemed more comfortable, though the sonic weapon was still affecting him. "It's not a perfect solution," Dr. Bennett explained, "but it should reduce the impact enough for them to function." With the adjustment made, the pets recovered, enough to continue the mission, though not at full capacity. The human teams had to rely more on conventional tactics. Diane's team fought their way to the central facility. Inside, they found what they were looking for: a Kavari control center more sophisticated than the one they had discovered in the mountains. "This isn't just controlling war beasts," said Greg Howard, who had joined the mission as a science advisor. "It's gathering data from them. The Kavari are learning from each encounter." As they studied the facility, Max suddenly became alert again, staring intently at a sealed door. Despite the sonic interference, his enhanced senses had detected something important. "There's something behind that door," Diane said. "Can we open it?" Greg worked on the control panel while the rest of the team secured the room. When the door finally opened, they found something unexpected: a holding area containing several unconscious humans. "Colonists," Diane realized. "They're keeping prisoners." Medical teams quickly moved in to help the captives. One of them, a woman named Carol Ward, was conscious enough to speak. "They're studying us," she said weakly. "The aliens. They want to understand how we connect with our animals. They can't comprehend it. This revelation changed everything. The Kavari weren't just fighting for resources. They were trying to understand the human-animal bond." While the rescued colonists were evacuated, Diane's team continued exploring the facility. In another section, they discovered tanks containing what appeared to be early versions of the war beasts. "These are prototypes," Greg explained, examining the data. "They've been trying different designs, testing them against our defenses." Max led them to a final chamber, larger than the others. Inside was a single war beast, different from any they had seen before. It was massive, heavily armored, and had multiple neural implants visible on its body. "This must be their next generation weapon," said Diane. Before they could examine it further, the beast's eyes opened. Unlike the others, this one seemed fully aware, almost intelligent. It looked directly at Max and, to everyone's surprise, made no move to attack. Max approached cautiously, growling softly. The war beast remained still, watching him. Through her neural link, Diane sensed Max's confusion. The creature before them wasn't sending the usual hostile signals. Greg checked the data terminal nearby. "This isn't just a war beast," he said in amazement. "It's a command unit. It relays orders to all the others in this sector." "Can we capture it?" Diane asked. "If we can maintain the disruption, maybe," Greg replied. "But we'd need to transport it carefully. Its signals might activate other war beasts if it feels threatened. Max, still connected to Diane through the neural interface, seemed to understand the situation. He approached the command beast again, this time projecting a different type of disruption. Not to confuse, but to communicate. The large beast tilted its head as if listening. Then, remarkably, it lay down in a submissive posture. "What just happened?" Diane asked, amazed. "I think," Greg said slowly, "Max just established dominance, like wolf-pack behavior. He's telling it he's in charge." The discovery changed their plans completely. Instead of destroying the facility, they secured it for research. The command beast was sedated for transport back to Earth Command for study. As they completed the mission, Admiral Simmons contacted Captain Rogers. "We're getting reports from across all theaters," he said. "The war beasts are becoming less coordinated. Your mission has had far-reaching effects." Later, as the EFS Defender left orbit, Dr. Bennett shared her analysis with the team. The Kavari designed their war beasts based on predator species, but they didn't understand something fundamental about Earth predators, she explained. "Many of our pets are descended from pack animals with complex social structures. They understand hierarchy and communication in ways the Kavari never programmed into their beasts." Diane looked at Max, resting after the difficult mission. "So our pets aren't just disrupting their signals," she said. "They're replacing them with their own." "Exactly," said Dr. Bennett. "The Kavari created weapons, but they didn't account for something more powerful than programming, the natural bond between species that evolved together." As word of the success spread through human space, a new phase of the war began. Humanity was no longer just defending. They were taking the fight to the enemy, with their loyal companions leading the way. Admiral Joe Simmons stood before the Earth Defense Council, presenting the plan that could end the war. On the large screen behind him was an image of a massive ship hidden in the asteroid belt of the Proxima Centauri system. "This is the Kavari command ship," Simmons explained. "We've confirmed it's directing all war beast operations in human space. Our intelligence comes from the captured command beast and data from the Vega Prime facility." "How certain are we of this information?" asked Counselor Rita Moore. "Very certain," replied Dr. Kevin Park, standing beside the Admiral. "The command beast provided a direct neural link to their communication network. We believe this ship contains the central control system for all war beasts." "What do you propose?" asked the Council Chair. "Operation Wild Hunt," said Simmons. "A direct assault on the command ship using our enhanced pet strike teams. While our fleet engages their outer defenses, small teams will infiltrate the ship and disable their control center." The Council approved the plan. Within days, Earth's most effective pet handler teams gathered aboard the assault carrier EFS Intrepid. Among them were Diane Russell and Max, now veterans of numerous missions against the Kavari. Captain Sam Rodriguez briefed the infiltration teams. "This mission is unlike any we've attempted before. We'll be entering enemy territory with limited intelligence. The ship's interior layout is unknown. How will we navigate once inside?" asked one of the handlers. "That's where our companions come in," Rodriguez replied. "Their enhanced senses can detect the control signals. They'll lead us to the source." Diane checked Max's special combat gear one last time. The German Shepherd wore a lightweight armor vest and an advanced neural interface collar. Despite being 12 years old, Max remained one of their most effective assets, his bond with Diane stronger than ever. "Ready for one more big mission, boy?" she asked softly. Max licked her hand in response. The assault began at 0600 hours. Earth fleet ships engaged the Kavari defenses, while stealth dropships carried the infiltration teams toward the command vessel. Diane's team was one of 6 that would enter at different points. 2 minutes to insertion, the pilot announced. Diane looked at her team, 3 dog handlers including herself, 2 cat specialists, and a technician with a specially trained ferret. All of them had fought numerous battles alongside their animal companions. Their dropship attached to the hull of the Kavari vessel. Cutting tools created an entrance and they moved inside. The alien corridors were strange. hexagonal passages with an amber glow and surfaces that seemed partly organic. "Max, find the control source," Diane instructed. Max led them deeper into the ship, following signals only he could detect. The other dogs, a Belgian Malinois named Ranger and a border collie named Sky, guarded their flanks. The cats, Midnight and Phantom, scouted ahead, their enhanced vision perfect for detecting movement in the dimly lit corridors. They encountered surprisingly few war beasts inside. Those they did meet were quickly confused by the pet's disruption abilities. Something felt wrong to Diane. The ship seemed too empty. "Command, this is Russell," she reported quietly. "Minimal resistance encountered. Proceeding to what appears to be a central chamber." "Copy that," responded Rodriguez. "Other teams report the same. Proceed with caution." As they approached a large door, Max suddenly stopped, his posture changing. Through their neural link, Diane sensed not fear, but confusion. "What is it, boy?" The door opened automatically. Inside was a vast chamber filled with thousands of transparent containers. Each held what appeared to be a sleeping Kavari. "What is this place?" whispered one of the cat handlers. The technician scanned the room with specialized equipment. "It's some kind of stasis chamber. These Kavari are in suspended animation." At the center of the room stood a much larger container. Inside was a Kavari unlike the others, nearly twice the size with more complex patterns on its exoskeleton. Around this container were devices emitting pulses of light and sound. "I think that's their leader," said Diane. "And those devices must be the control system." Max approached the central container, studying the large Kavari inside. Through their neural link, Diane felt his curiosity and something else. Recognition. "He senses something familiar," she realized. "The signals are similar to what the command beast emitted, but much stronger." Before they could decide their next move, the large Kavari's eyes opened. The control devices pulsed more rapidly, and a voice spoke in their minds. "You have come far, humans and earth beasts. I am the Hive Queen. All Kavari and war beasts serve my will." The team raised their weapons, but Diane signaled them to wait. "Why are you attacking our colonies?" she asked. "Resources are needed. Your worlds are suitable. Your species is inefficient, keeping creatures for companionship rather than utility." "Those companions are why your war beasts are failing," Diane replied. "Yes, an unexpected development. Your bond with lesser species confuses our control patterns. This must be studied." As the Queen spoke, Max moved closer to the container, seemingly drawn to it. The neural link between him and Diane grew stronger, transmitting not just impressions now, but clear thoughts. "She controls them all," came Max's thoughts, translated through the advanced interface. "The Kavari, the war beasts, they're all like me, connected to her." Diane was shocked to receive such clear communication from Max, but understood immediately. "They're all linked, just like we are," she told her team. "But their link is forced control, not partnership." The Queen's voice came again. "Your animals choose to serve you. This concept is difficult. Kavari do not choose. War beasts do not choose. All serve the hive." Other infiltration teams began arriving at the chamber, their pets leading them to the same place. Together they surrounded the Queen's container. "If we destroy the control devices, what happens to the Kavari?" Diane asked. "They would be individuals," the Queen replied, the concept clearly disturbing to her. "Chaos would result. The hive must control." Max gazed up at Diane, a new understanding passing between them. Then he turned to the other pets in the room. Through their neural links, the animals communicated in a way their human handlers could partly sense, but not fully understand. "They're deciding something," one handler said. Max turned back to the Queen's container, then to the control devices. He barked once, sharply. The other dogs joined, then the cats, creating a cacophony that seemed random but wasn't. "They're disrupting the control signal together," Greg Howard realized, having joined one of the other teams. "But it's different from before. They're not just blocking it, they're replacing it with something else." The Queen's container began to pulse with light. What is happening? Her voice seemed weaker now, confused. The link is changing. This is not control. This is cooperation, Diane finished. They're showing the Kavari another way to connect. Max pressed his paw against the container, his eyes fixed on the Queen. Through their link, Diane felt his intention, not to destroy the Queen, but to show her a different path. The Queen's voice came again, softer now. For millennia, the hive has controlled. We were not always thus. Long ago, we too had companions. Images flowed through the neural network, ancient Kavari living alongside creatures similar to Earth's insects, but larger, more intelligent, not as slaves or masters but partners. We forgot, the Queen said. The hive grew. Control became everything. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. The stasis containers began opening. Kavari were waking up. She's releasing them, Diane realized. Everyone prepare. But the awakening Kavari didn't attack. They seemed confused, looking around as if seeing their surroundings for the first time. Some approached the pets cautiously, antennae twitching with curiosity rather than hostility. The control is broken, the Queen said. They are individuals again. Her tone held both fear and wonder. Max's disruption had worked, but at a cost. The neural interface collar sparked and failed, its circuits burned out from the effort. The aging dog collapsed, his body giving out. Max, Diane cried, rushing to his side. Medic! As the team's medic worked to stabilize Max, the Queen spoke. Once more. Your companion has shown us what we lost. Perhaps there is another way forward. 1 year later, Diane stood before the memorial on New Eden. A statue of Max stood at its center, surrounded by representations of other animals who had helped win the war. The German shepherd had survived his heroic effort, but had retired from service. He now lived peacefully with Diane at her home near the Colonies lake. Beside her stood a Kavari delegate, one of many who now visited human worlds not as conquerors but as allies. The peace treaty had been complex, but its foundation was simple: mutual respect between species. Your companion changed everything for us, the Kavari said, using a translator device. We had forgotten that control is not strength. Connection is strength. Diane watched as other Kavari placed small objects at the base of Max's statue, offerings of respect. In the years since the war ended, the insectoid aliens had begun to rediscover their own ancient traditions of partnership with other species. Max didn't just save humanity, Diane said quietly. He saved the Kavari from themselves. At home that evening, Max lay by the fireplace, gray around his muzzle but content. Without the neural interface, he couldn't communicate in words anymore, but the bond remained. As Diane sat beside him, tea,